Syracuse actually played some defense last night. Can you believe it?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Last night, Syracuse basketball, they were on the road in California. They probably needed to beat Cal last night, and they did exactly that, 75-66. And here on one more thing, we're going to talk about the defense for Syracuse basketball because the Orange, in my opinion, they had one of the best defensive performances as a team this season. And it started pregame. According to the broadcast, Syracuse basketball was in full sweat 30 minutes before the game even started, working on its defense. And you know what they say, hard work pays off, and it certainly paid off against Cal. And isn't it such a weird concept that if you prevent the other team from scoring a lot of points, it increases your odds of winning? Isn't that such a weird concept, right? That defense is very important in Syracuse basketball. They mixed in some zone. They mixed in some man. Even Naheem McLeod got some game action for the first time in a few weeks, and he got a block in his limited minutes. I mean, it also helped that Cal was without their leading scorer, Andre Stojakovic. I get it. That certainly helped Syracuse, but guess what? It's not my problem. That's not your problem. That's not Syracuse's problem. That's Cal's problem. And you know what? They were still scoring a little bit without Andre Stojakovic, who's been out for the last few games. You can go look up those point totals. I mean, they were respectable. They put up almost 100 against Miami in an overtime game, for what it's worth. And I don't think Andre Stojakovic played in that one. So this was an impressive defensive performance for Syracuse basketball. And here are some of the numbers, all right? But it goes beyond the numbers, and I'll get to it in just a second. Cal shot 29% from the field as a team and 17% from the three-point line. That is by far the lowest field goal and three-point percentages that Syracuse has held a team to this season. By far. So it was a really impressive performance. So how did Cal even score 66 points? Well, as I told you last night in the postgame, 24 of Cal's 66 points came at the free throw line. So Syracuse was fouling a good number of times, and Cal was making their free throws to their credit. But at least they were making them earn it at the line rather than giving them wide open shots. I guess that's the next step, which is stop fouling a bunch of times. And also Cal's point total is a little inflated because, well, Syracuse can't break a full court press. That's something that they have to work on. I hit on it last night. But it wasn't just the percentages that tell the story of this game. In fact, there's an example that I'm about to put on the screen for you right here that demonstrates that Syracuse actually allowed a bucket on this possession, but it was still quality defense. And let me put it on the screen for you right now. So that's J.J. Starling guarding Jeremiah Wilkinson. It's a left wing three with 14-16 left in the first half, and it made the score 13-7 Syracuse. As you can see, if you are watching this on YouTube and if you're listening to this podcast, I'll try to describe it for you. J.J. Starling is right in the face of Jeremiah Wilkinson. He is right there in perfect positioning. Also, keep in mind, there's 12 seconds left on the shot clock when Wilkinson releases the ball. So JJ also has to guard against a potential drive. But overall, he does about as good of a job as you can defending Wilkinson on this three-pointer. But Wilkinson's a great player, and it goes in. And you know what you say when that happens? Or you don't really say anything. You just kind of shrug your shoulders and you just move on. So it was an excellent play there by Jeremiah Wilkinson. And hopefully you guys that are watching this podcast got a good idea. And if you're listening to it, hopefully I gave you a good description. Once again, it was a three-pointer that made the score 13-7 Syracuse with 14-16 left in the first half. Overall, more often than not, when Syracuse had a really good contest or a really good defensive possession, it paid off for the Orange. That was one of the few times where it didn't. And you just tip your cap and you say Jeremiah Wilkinson is a great player who made a big-time shot over J.J. Starling. So the defense, they came out swarming in this one, and they were good for the most part throughout this entire game. Leave your thoughts on Syracuse Cal in the comments section below. Now, coming up, we'll talk about whether or not this defense can continue. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate, plus knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. And last night, Syracuse beat Cal on the road 75-66. The defense was excellent for the Orange from start to finish. So the question is, can the defense continue to be stout going forward? Well, let's define going forward. Are we going to talk about the next game or the next few games? Because I think that's important for the question that I just asked you all. Because next up for Syracuse is a home matchup against the Duke Blue Devils Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I have zero expectations for the Orange in this one. I would be shocked if Syracuse even held Duke under 70 points for the game. In fact, Wake Forest is the only ACC team so far to hold Duke under 70 points, and Duke has played 11 conference games. And by the way, they are 11-0 in the conference, and they have won 15 straight games as a team. Do you remember that court storm last year when Syracuse beat North Carolina? You all remember that? That was really cool. That was I think that was my favorite game all of last season for Syracuse when they were at home. Carolina came in as one of the best teams in the country, and Syracuse beat them. They really did. They just beat them. It wasn't fluky. It wasn't lucky. I remember J.J. Starling and Judah Mintz just went absolutely bonkers in that one, and they won the game. And remember that court storm after? Multiply it by 1,000 if Syracuse manages to beat Duke on Wednesday. In fact, extend to Adrian Autry for 5 more years if they beat Duke on Wednesday. I actually have no expectations. So Syracuse basketball, if they allow 90 points inside the dome, I'm not going to worry about it. Duke is just that good. They are on a different planet than basically every other team in the entire country. But as far as after Duke, well, now we can have a little bit of a conversation about the defense, because after Duke, the next 2 games, I think are both winnable for Syracuse basketball. Dare I say the expectation is that Syracuse wins both of their games after Duke. You got Boston College at home, and then you're going to Miami. Again, I think it's pretty reasonable for Syracuse to win both and also play good defense in both of those games, because these are not good teams in the ACC. Boston College is bottom 5 in the ACC in points per game, and Syracuse already beat Boston College on the road back in January. It was January 11th. And Miami is 9th in the ACC in points per game. They are only a 10th of a point higher than where Cal is right now, and obviously Cal's points per game went a little bit lower because of what happened yesterday when they scored 66. So they're about the same team in terms of points per game. I think that Syracuse can win both and still play solid defense in both of those games. I think it's a little bit of Syracuse when it comes to the defense, but it also comes down to the opponent. Like with Duke, if they hold them under 70, we're going to be sitting here on the podcast post-game saying, where has that been all season long? It would be a miracle if they can even do that. But Miami, And Boston College, absolutely. I think the Orange could play solid defense and win both of those games. Leave your thoughts on that in the comment section below. If you think Syracuse can continue its stout defense from last night against Cal. As far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, I will be back tomorrow talking some Syracuse football, most likely in a full podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Donald and Kenton Gibbs. They keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. It's completely free. And also, if you can just do me a favor, tell one or two of your closest Syracuse Orange friends about the Locked On Syracuse podcast so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again very soon.